Hi, everyone. I'm Maggie McGrath, editor of Forbes Women. Billionaire pop star Taylor Swift and three-time Super Bowl champion Travis Kelce announced their engagement on Monday. The duo is a power couple in American pop culture and media, but how do they compare against the billionaire families and couples that Forbes spends its time tracking? Joining us to answer that question is my colleague, Louisa Kroll. She is an executive editor here at Forbes. Louisa, thank you so much for joining us.
Nice to be here, Maggie.
So you have spent much of your career at Forbes tracking the wealthy and the powerful people in the world, not just in the U.S. But let's talk about Taylor Swift first and foremost. How much is she worth, and what are the factors Forbes accounts when coming up with that net worth valuation?
Taylor Swift is worth $1.6 billion. That makes her the world's wealthiest female musician. What's interesting about Taylor compared with people like Jay-Z, who's the richest musician, and Rihanna, is the fact that almost all of her fortune actually comes from her music. Most of the others have brands or whatever that they've built, but the fact that she's been able to amass that kind of a fortune really from her songwriting and her singing and her, kind of marketing and business prowess is pretty incredible.
And of course, she retained the rights to her masters earlier this year. Did that boost her fortune by our accounting?
Not too much. We basically value her catalog at $600 million, but of course it pays dividends, in the future because she kind of controls and, gets all the money. We factor in another $850 million for the cash that she's pocketed from her record albums over the years, and also her phenomenal tours, which, anybody on this call who has teenage daughters has probably spent quite a lot of money and are just hoping that the next one won't be too soon. So maybe the wedding will delay it for a bit.
As someone who could not succeed in getting tickets to the Eras tour, I also hope the next price point will be a little more accessible. But let's turn to her fiance, Kansas City Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce. How does his net worth compare to Taylor Swift's?
Well, it's so much smaller, but it's 70 million. And this is kind of where we talk about the foolishness of, when you're doing Forbes valuations, when we do this day in and day out and you start to lose sight of, what reality is. I mean, this guy is super rich and he's kind of still at the start of all the things that he's doing. I mean, I remember when they first started dating, I was a little bit freaked out, worrying that Travis was very much just exploiting Taylor to kind of raise his own profile. But they seem to be such a great fit. But the way that his podcast with his brother is just taking off right now, again, we value him at 70 million. And that's only reflecting a partial sum of the amount of the podcast deal that they signed. So he'll still pocket more than that. That deal was for 100 million. He has brand sponsorships. He's got some entrepreneurial ventures. He has his own multi-million dollar house. So he could afford that $650,000 ring. And, he can afford to keep up with her. But, I'm sure a lot of people will be talking about, will there or won't be a prenup. But, kind of hoping that they just let it go, but who knows?
Let it go. I have seen some posts on social media saying that prenup is going to be longer than most books that we all read. And I know it's too soon to know the details of what this prenup looks like, but based on your years of covering wealthy and powerful couples, what do we know about the types of prenups these wealthy people typically engage with?
I mean, it's usually whatever you have when you come into the marriage is your own. So, I mean, it would be, we were joking about, because we don't usually give net worths to the double digits, but they're now 1.67 billion. So she would have 1.6 billion. He'd have the 70 million, and then they'd go from there. But, we'll see. I mean, obviously, first of all, it's very hard to, often get those details until the divorce goes through. But the other thing is it depends on where they live. If they're in California, then it really is, that's a state that's pretty firm about splitting assets, pretty much right down the middle. So, we'll have to see. I mean, and then of course she's got yet another album coming out. Doesn't seem like she's slowing down anytime soon. So I'm sure that her, numbers will, continue to rise for sure.
As you look at the other powerful couples, let's start with the world of media and entertainment alone. Obviously, Beyonce and Jay-Z, Rihanna and A$AP Rocky. How does the combined net worth of Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce compare to some of those couples?
Well, Jay-Z and Beyonce are still, light years ahead. Taylor is worth not double Beyonce, but, several hundred million more. Beyonce is not yet a billionaire based on our calculations, but Jay-Z is. He's worth about, I think it's 2.5 billion, but together they're worth over 3 billion. So they kind of hold that record. But, they've been at it together for so much longer. They both really were, hugely successful. Jay-Z already had his own career. And again, like I was talking about, he has so many other interests that go beyond, the music that he's made. So he's kind of really more of like a music mogul, not just really a, musician. I think that, Kanye and Kim, before that all went to pot and before things went to pot, they were kind of rivaling those guys. But otherwise, you tend to have one person that's significantly wealthier, or you have a couple people that are just not in the same league. So ASAP Rocky, again, does pretty well, but nowhere close. So those two aren't going to, at least at this point, get anywhere close. One couple that we've been having fun starting to look at is Kendra Scott and Zach Brown. And, Kendra, again, not quite a billionaire yet, but she has a really successful jewelry and lifestyle brand. He's obviously a very successful country music singer. You know, David and Victoria Beckham were one of the original power couples. But again, none of them are coming close to Taylor and Travis or Beyonce and Jay-Z. So
That's, of course, within media and entertainment. But if we zoom out and look at the universe of Forbes billionaires, we've seen some other couples, co founding couples, families with significantly more money. Can you talk about, in the context of the Forbes billionaires list, where Taylor and Travis would rank as a duo?
kind of like within the Forbes ranks, they'd be kind of on the lower end. I did want to mention Barry Diller and Diane von Furstenberg, because that's another one that is kind of media. That's not what I'm really thinking of when I was thinking more celebrity. But, those two have both been incredibly successful as well. But again, she's not on the list. What you're really talking about is this phenomena that we saw so much when I first started the America's Wealthiest Self-Made Women, which is that a lot of the most successful self-made women up until really, recently, and thanks in part to people like Taylor Swift and some of these celebrities, but a lot of them made their fortunes because they founded their businesses with their husbands. So Diane Hendricks, who is the richest self-made woman in America, and Maggie did a fantastic profile on her a few years ago. She founded the business with her husband. He ended up tragically falling off their roof, which was insane because they were, in building supplies. But she has maintained that because now she has total ownership. When you think about, Linda Resnick, she's another well known in the world of business because, she's behind Palm Wonderful, Cuties. What's the other one? Fiji Water. Again, founded it with her husband. You go down the list, Aaron Osmond, who's an aerospace billionaire. Again, incredibly impressive self-made woman, founded it with her husband. So they all are sharing it pretty, 50-50. And they're all, worth as a couple and individually still more than Taylor and Travis. But, give those two time and, we'll see.
I was going to say both Taylor and Travis seem to my eye pretty entrepreneurial, so we could be talking about a business that they built together 2, 5, 10 years from now. But on that note, I'm wondering, Louisa, obviously there's a ton of buzz around Taylor and Travis today and this week. As you've looked at power couples in entertainment, in the celebrity world, in media, across everywhere, how do Taylor and Travis compare, in your opinion, to some of those other couples?
I mean, first of all, the phenomenon behind Taylor Swift is like nothing I've ever experienced. I guess she's kind of like the female equivalent to, Elon Musk these days, which sounds crazy to say, but in terms of somebody who is super wealthy, but is just so famous for that, and so famous, for being famous. And I feel like, because so many of the most successful women in the country really don't have the kind of profile that some of the, men like Bill Gates and Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos have, that I think that, first of all, she already kind of stands out there. But I think, it's the English teacher and the gym teacher. It's the football star. I mean, my favorite song was about the one where she's in the bleachers, watching her, best friend, and he's hanging out with the cheerleader. I mean, this is just such a feel-good American story, and I think so many people were rooting for them. And whether it's her, being at the halftime show at the Super Bowl next year, which is what a lot of people are thinking about, or them starting some sort of his and hers business. I mean, the buzz is just insane, and I don't really remember one, in recent years. Obviously, there was a lot of buzz around Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez, before they got married, but it wasn't quite the same. Like, it wasn't quite the feeling like these two are being brought together and the entire country is watching. I think Reese Witherspoon, who's another incredibly successful woman who we track, I think she said yesterday, did anybody else have their entire workday blown up from the news of Travis and Taylor's engagement? So
that makes me feel better that Reese Witherspoon was as distracted as the rest of us. Louisa Kroll, thank you so, so much for sitting down with me and talking about this. We really appreciate your time, and I always love talking to you.
Same here. Thanks so much, Maggie.